I refused to co-sign my brother's house loan, and my mother left my daughter alone in a park to teach me family's value. So I made sure she went to prison and sued my brother for every dollar he owed me. Picture this. I'm 35 male sitting in another mind-numbing quarterly review meeting pretending to care about profit margins while internally planning my escape from corporate hell when my phone starts buzzing like a wasp trapped in a jar. Unknown number. Normally I'd send that straight to voicemail because, let's be real, the only people who call from unknown numbers are telemarketers trying to extend my car warranty or scammers from Microsoft telling me my computer has a virus. But something made me answer. Is this Lucas, father of Ellie? My blood turned to ice. That's not how phone calls about your kid are supposed to start. Yes, that's me. Who is this? This is Officer Valerie with Metro PD. Your daughter is safe, but we need you to come to the station immediately. There's been an incident. The world tilted sideways. Ellie was supposed to be having a fun day with her grandma, probably getting spoiled with ice cream and playground time like every other Tuesday when my mom took her for their weekly bonding session. What kind of incident? Where's my mother? Sir, I'd rather explain this in person. Your daughter was found alone at Riverside Park by a citizen who prevented a potential abduction. We're at the downtown station. Potential abduction. Those words hit me like a freight train loaded with pure terror. I don't remember leaving that conference room or what excuse I gave my boss. I just remember running through the office like John Wick on a mission, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. The drive to the police station was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Every red light felt like an eternity. Every slow driver was personally conspiring against me. When I burst through the station doors and saw Ellie sitting in a chair clutching her stuffed unicorn and talking to a female officer, I nearly collapsed with relief. She looked physically okay, but her eyes had this shell-shocked look that no 5-year-old should ever have. Daddy. She jumped up and ran to me, and I caught her in a hug that probably lasted longer than the entire meeting I'd abandoned. I'm here, baby. I'm here. You're safe now. Officer Valerie approached with the expression that told me this conversation was going to ruin my entire year. Lucas, we need to talk about what happened today. Your daughter was very lucky. Lucky. That word made my stomach drop because it implied how easily things could have gone wrong. Anna saved me, Daddy, Ellie said, pointing to a woman sitting nearby who I hadn't noticed in my panic. She scared the bad man away. I looked over at this Anna person, probably mid-20s, athletic build, wearing jeans and a hoodie, but carrying herself like someone who could handle business. She gave me a small wave and a smile. Ma'am, I can't thank you enough. I started, but she held up her hand. Let's just focus on Ellie right now. We can talk later. Officer Valerie guided us to a private room where she explained what had happened, and with each detail my anger shifted from simmer to full rolling boil. To understand how we ended up in this nightmare, you need to know about my family dynamic. Picture the most toxic workplace you've ever been in. Multiply it by 10, add some serious mental health issues, and make it impossible to quit. That's my family. My mother Carla doesn't just think the world owes her something. She's convinced she's the queen of the universe, and everyone else exists to serve her needs. She's got this supernatural ability to twist any situation into proof of how wrong she's been, even when she's literally the one causing all the problems. This woman could win Olympic gold in emotional manipulation. She's perfected the art of playing victim. We're talking about someone who once called the police on a McDonald's worker because they forgot her extra ketchup packets, claiming it was discrimination against seniors. The cops actually laughed at her. But the real piece of work is my brother Diego. 2 years younger than me, but with the emotional maturity of a rabid honey badger. While I'd been working since high school, starting with washing dishes and clawing my way up to a decent career, Diego had been living the extended man-child lifestyle funded entirely by family guilt trips and mom's enabling. This dude has failed at everything he's ever touched. 4 different colleges, 3 businesses that were basically pyramid schemes, and a credit score that would make a gambling addict look financially responsible. But here's what really makes Diego special. He's not just irresponsible, he's genuinely unpleasant to be around. We're talking about a guy who screams at fast food workers, who's been banned from 2 different gyms for starting fights, and who once threw a tantrum at Ellie's birthday party because he thought his gift wasn't prominent enough. The dude's got this weird jealousy complex about my life. He can't stand that I worked my ass off and actually made something of myself. He's the type who thinks success should just be handed to you because you exist. Meanwhile, his idea of networking is hitting up family members for money while insulting them for not giving enough. I've watched him burn bridges with literally everyone who's ever tried to help him. Former employers, friends, girlfriends, they all end up with the same story about Diego being aggressive, entitled, and completely unable to accept responsibility for anything. The family dynamic was always the same toxic cycle. Diego would screw up spectacularly and blame everyone else. Mom would have a complete meltdown about how her baby boy was being persecuted by the cruel world. And somehow I'd end up fixing the mess because I was the successful one who could afford it. Over the years, I'd lent him money more times than I could count. The crypto scheme that lost $8,000. The import business that was actually just him buying knockoff electronics on eBay. The investment opportunity that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. Each time he promised to pay me back as soon as things took off. Spoiler alert, things never took off. Looking back, I should have cut him off years ago. But there's something about family manipulation that makes you question your own sanity. They've got this way of making you feel like you're the problem for having boundaries. This time, Diego had outdone himself. He'd been dating this girl, Jessica, for all of 4 months and decided he needed to buy a house to lock her down before she realized she could do better. His credit was more damaged than a car in a demolition derby. So naturally, he needed a cosigner. And in Diego's tiny brain, that meant me. He showed up at my house that Sunday morning with Mom in tow, marching into my kitchen without even knocking like he owned the place. "You need to help me out with this house thing. Jessica's getting impatient. Maybe try getting a stable job first." His face went red immediately. "That wasn't my fault. The market crashed. You want me to co-sign a house while you still owe me money? I'm not doing that." What followed was 2 hours of insults, guilt trips, and barely contained rage from both of them. Mom cycled through her usual manipulation tactics while Diego alternated between victim mode and outright hostility. When Ellie wandered downstairs and saw Uncle Diego yelling at me, she asked why he was being mean. "Your dad's just being difficult about family stuff," Diego told her, which was the moment I decided this conversation was over. When they finally realized I wasn't budging, Diego stood up and got right in my face. "You're going to regret this, bro. When your precious little life falls apart, don't come crying to us for help." Mom nodded along like he'd just delivered the Gettysburg Address instead of a temper tantrum from a grown man. "You'll both learn what it means to abandon family," she added with this chilling calmness. They left together. 2 days later, Jessica dumped Diego via text message. According to the family gossip network, she told him he was emotionally unstable and financially irresponsible, and that she couldn't see a future with someone who blamed everyone else for his problems. Diego naturally blamed me for ruining his relationship by not co-signing the loan, because in his world, everything that goes wrong is someone else's fault. The week after our conversation, things got weird. Mom went completely radio silent. No calls, no random visits, no weekend trips to spoil Ellie. It was like she'd been snapped out of existence, except instead of Thanos, it was just good old-fashioned emotional manipulation. Ellie kept asking about Grandma, and I didn't know what to tell her. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that her grandmother is basically holding herself hostage to prove a point? It's like trying to explain cryptocurrency to your boomer dad. Technically possible, but nobody's going to be happy with the results. Diego called me up, predictably losing his mind. "Thanks to you, Mom's a wreck. She can't even eat because of how much you've hurt her." Classic. In Diego's world, I was always the villain for not enabling his Peter Pan syndrome. According to him, having money meant I was obligated to share it, like we were living in some communist fever dream where my bank account was community property. Then, that Tuesday happened. Mom showed up at my door like nothing had gone down, wearing this smile that would make the Joker nervous. "I want to take Ellie to the park today. Just some grandma-granddaughter time." Ellie was thrilled. She'd been asking about Grandma all week. And honestly, I was relieved that we seemed to be moving past our argument. Maybe Mom had thought it over and realized family was more important than Diego's latest financial disaster. "Can we go to the park, Grandma? They have the big slide." "Of course, Mika. We'll have such a special day together." Something about the way she said special should have set off alarm bells. But I was just a dad who wanted his family to get along. I helped Ellie pack her little backpack with snacks and her stuffed unicorn, gave her the usual safety lecture about staying close to Grandma, and watched them drive off. What I didn't know was that Diego had been blowing up Mom's phone since Jessica dumped him, screaming about how this was all my fault and demanding she do something to make me pay. He'd been drinking heavily since the breakup and was in full victim mode, ranting about how Jessica would still be with him if I'd helped him. Mom had already planned everything. According to what Ellie told the police later, the day started normal. They played on the swings, went down the slide a few times, and shared a bag of goldfish crackers. Ellie was having the time of her life, completely trusting that Grandma would keep her safe. Then around 1 p.m., Mom got a phone call from Diego. She walked a little distance away, had a loud conversation, and came back looking upset. Ellie, sweetie, Grandma has to go help Uncle Diego right now. You need to sit right here on this bench and wait for Daddy. He's coming to pick you up. Where are you going? Grandma, Uncle Diego is in trouble and needs my help. But don't worry, Daddy will be here soon. Just stay right on this bench and don't move. Okay, this is very important. Ellie nodded because she's 5 and trusts adults not to be sociopaths. Mom gave her a quick hug, told her to be good, and walked away without looking back. Just walked away from a 5-year-old in a public park like she was throwing away a piece of trash. Ellie sat on that bench for almost 2 hours watching families play and have fun while wondering why her daddy was taking so long. She didn't have a phone, didn't know our address by heart, and had been taught to stay where adults told her to stay. That's when the predator showed up. Ellie was still sitting on that bench around 2:30 p.m. when she noticed a man. He'd been hanging around the playground for a while, but now he was getting closer, trying to talk to kids when their parents weren't looking. According to Ellie's statement and witness accounts, this guy, later identified as Matthew, a registered SO who'd been prowling parks for weeks, approached her with the classic predator playbook. He tried offering candy, saying he knew where her daddy was claiming to be a police officer. Ellie, bless her heart, remembered the stranger danger talks we'd had and kept refusing his help. But this piece of garbage wasn't taking no for an answer. He kept getting closer, and Ellie started getting scared and clutching her unicorn tighter. That's when Anna noticed what was happening. Anna was at the park with her sister's kids when she spotted a man who was way too interested in a little girl sitting alone. She has this background in martial arts and personal safety training, so she immediately recognized the situation for what it was. She started walking toward them, but then she saw Matthew grab Ellie's arm and try to pull her off the bench. Anna didn't hesitate. She sprinted over there like she was chasing down a touchdown pass. "Hey, get your hands off her!" Matthew tried to play it off, claiming Ellie was his niece who'd gotten separated from family. Ellie immediately contradicted him, crying that she didn't know this man. Anna positioned herself between Matthew and Ellie, and apparently her whole demeanor changed. She went from concerned bystander to someone you definitely don't want to mess with. Step away from the child. Now. Matthew tried to intimidate her, telling her to mind her own business, but other parents started noticing the commotion. A couple of dads started walking over, cell phones already out. Matthew realized his window was closing fast. He made a grab for Ellie one more time, but Anna was ready. She blocked him, pushed Ellie behind her, and made it very clear that he'd have to go through her first. "I'm calling the police," she announced loudly enough for half the park to hear. "Everyone get a good look at this guy." Matthew finally gave up and took off running, but not before multiple people got his description and someone managed to snap a photo. Anna immediately called 911 while comforting Ellie, who was understandably freaking out. When the police arrived, Anna had the whole situation handled. She'd gotten Ellie calmed down, collected witness statements from other parents, and had a clear description of the would-be kidnapper. She rode with Ellie to the station and stayed until I got there. Meeting Anna in that police station was like getting hit by lightning, but in a good way. Here was this woman who'd literally saved my daughter from a nightmare, and she was acting like it was just another Tuesday. No dramatics, no seeking attention, just genuine concern for Ellie's well-being. "Thank you," I said, feeling completely inadequate for what she'd done, but it was all I could manage without breaking down. Anyone would have done the same thing, she said. But we both knew that wasn't true. Ellie was clinging to both of us by this point, and Officer Valerie had some hard questions about where the hell my mother was during all this. That's when I had to explain that my own mother had deliberately abandoned Ellie as punishment for not enabling my brother's financial irresponsibility. Saying it out loud made it sound even more insane than it felt. "Let me get this straight," Officer Valerie said. "Your mother left a 5-year-old alone in a public park because you wouldn't co-sign a loan?" "Exactly." The look on Anna's face went from confusion to pure rage. What kind of person uses a child as a weapon? I was about to find out that the answer was the kind of person who was about to face felony charges. While I was at the police station learning that my mother was a sociopath and Anna was a guardian angel, the cops were already tracking down Matthew. They caught him at his apartment 3 hours later, and his computer was full of exactly the kind of content you'd expect from someone who trolls parks looking for isolated kids. But that was just the beginning. Detective Bill had some serious questions about how Ellie ended up alone in the first place. I explained the whole situation, the lone drama, Diego's meltdown after Jessica dumped him, Mom's threats, her sudden appearance that morning acting weird. Detective Bill leaned back in his chair. "Sir, that's child endangerment at minimum. Given what almost happened, we're looking at potential felony charges. The next morning, Detective Bill called to let me know they'd obtained an arrest warrant for Mom on charges of child endangerment, child abandonment, and reckless endangerment. Given Matthew's criminal history and what almost happened, the district attorney was pushing for felony charges. That's when I realized something. I was done playing games with these people. If we were going full legal warfare, then it was time to collect on all debts. I called my lawyer Tom, who'd helped me with some business contracts before. I explained the situation and asked him to draft a demand letter for the $8,200 Diego still owed me from various loans over the past 2 years. Given recent events involving my family, I wanted this debt collected immediately. Tom was all business about it. Turns out, when your family abandons your kid and nearly gets her kidnapped, judges tend to be very unsympathetic to deadbeat relatives claiming, "But we're family," as a defense for not paying debts. Sir, given the circumstances, I think we have a strong case for immediate collection. Your brother's behavior and his family's actions constitute a breach of the implied good faith in these loan agreements. We can demand full payment within 30 days or face legal action. Do it. The demand letter was delivered to Diego's apartment via certified mail 3 days later. It was beautifully written legal language that basically said, "Pay up or get sued, you deadbeat piece of shit." Diego called me that night, absolutely losing his mind. He was drunk, slurring his words and screaming about how I was trying to destroy the family. I explained that I had documentation of every loan, including his promises to repay them, and that paying back money you borrowed isn't theft. I don't have $8 grand just sitting around. Then you should have thought about that before participating in a plan that could have gotten Ellie kidnapped. I didn't participate in anything. That was all Mom's idea. You're the one who demanded she teach me a lesson for not co-signing your loan. You think I don't know about your phone calls to her? Silence then, nervous stammering as he realized Mom had confessed everything when the police questioned her. She'd thrown him under the bus faster than you could say family loyalty. 2 weeks later, Diego called back sounding defeated. "I got the money. All of it, yeah, all of it. I had to sell my car and some other stuff, but I got it." The wire transfer came through the next day, $8,200, exactly what he owed me. For the first time in years, I was completely paid back by my deadbeat brother. Anna was at my house when I got the bank notification. We were making dinner while Ellie played in the living room. "You actually got the money back?" she asked, reading the bank alert over my shoulder. "Every penny." Turns out legal pressure works better than family guilt trips. How does it feel? Honestly, pretty damn good. I've been enabling his irresponsibility for years, and he finally had to face consequences. Anna had brought Ellie a children's book about brave girls and a small stuffed elephant to keep the unicorn company. Ellie acted like Christmas had come early. We ordered pizza and had an impromptu dinner party where Ellie regaled Anna with stories about her school friends and her favorite movies. Watching them bond was like watching a missing piece of our family puzzle click into place. After Ellie went to bed, Anna and I sat on the couch talking about everything and nothing. She was a teacher, had grown up in a stable family that actually solved problems instead of creating them, and had this calming presence that made me remember what normal felt like. "I keep thinking about what could have happened," I said. "But it didn't. Ellie's safe, the bad guy is in jail, your mother is facing consequences, and you got your money back. What if you hadn't been there? Someone else would have helped. I have to believe that. You saved my daughter's life. You would have done the same thing. Maybe. But I knew I was falling for the woman who'd literally saved my family." Meanwhile, Diego had been getting worse since paying me back. The loss of his car and having to liquidate his possessions to pay his debt had been the final straw in his already fragile mental state. He'd been fired from his latest job for showing up drunk, had gotten into a bar fight that resulted in another arrest, and was basically spiraling into full-blown alcoholism. That's when Aunt Mercedes decided to join the party. 2 months later, we were sitting in a courtroom that looked like the world's most depressing family reunion. Mom's side was packed with relatives who'd bought into her victim narrative. Aunt Mercedes front and center with a Bible in her lap, various cousins and Diego looking like someone had personally insulted his mother. Mercedes is Mom's older sister and has always been her biggest enabler. She's also one of those religious people who uses Bible verses like weapons and thinks being Christian gives her the right to judge everyone else's decisions. She'd been running a full propaganda campaign during those 2 months, calling every relative, family, friend, and church member to convince them that I was a demonic son who was persecuting his innocent mother. My side was basically just me, Anna, and the cold, hard truth. The prosecution started with Officer Valerie's testimony about finding Ellie and the initial investigation. Then Detective Bill explained how they'd tracked down Matthew and what they'd found on his computer. The prosecutor was clear. The defendant's actions directly enabled a registered sex offender to access her granddaughter. This wasn't negligence. It was a calculated decision that put a child in mortal danger. During the break, Mercedes cornered me in the hallway with her Bible clutched to her chest. She started saying verses about honoring thy father and mother, about forgiveness, about love being patient and kind. When I mentioned that I'd shown kindness to my daughter by protecting her from abandonment, she escalated to using murder verses to guilt-trip me. You're destroying a 68-year-old woman's life over a few hours, and now you've stolen money from Diego too. I didn't steal anything from Diego. I collected money he legally owed me, money that was given in love between brothers. You should give to the one who asks you and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. But you turned Christian charity into worldly greed. When Anna took the stand, she was incredible, professional, clear, and absolutely devastating to Mom's defense. She testified about observing Ellie sitting alone for approximately 30 minutes before Matthew's approach about the child being clearly distressed and completely vulnerable when the predator made his move. During cross-examination, Mom's lawyer tried to shake her testimony, but she held firm. Meanwhile, Mercedes was praying loudly enough that the bailiff had to tell her to quiet down. The most damaging testimony came from the child psychologist who'd been working with Ellie. The minor exhibits classic symptoms of abandonment trauma, compounded by the terror of a near abduction. She suffers from severe separation anxiety. That's when Mercedes completely lost it. She stood up in the middle of the courtroom and started shouting, "This is persecution of the righteous. You're all bearing false witness against an innocent woman." The judge ordered her removed from the courtroom. As the bailiff escorted her out, she was screaming about false accusers and the persecution of the faithful. When Mom finally took the stand, she came dressed like she was auditioning for the role of sympathetic grandmother in a Lifetime movie. The prosecutor destroyed her during cross-examination, getting her to admit that she'd abandoned her granddaughter to handle the exact same loan issue that caused the entire conflict. The judge was an older woman with decades of family court experience and zero patience. During closing arguments, she looked like she'd already made up her mind. I've reviewed all testimony and evidence in this case. The facts are clear. The defendant deliberately abandoned a minor child in a public location as retaliation against the child's father. This action directly led to the child being targeted by a predator and nearly resulted in abduction. Mom straightened up, probably expecting some speech about family forgiveness and second chances. Carla, your actions were not those of a confused grandmother making an innocent mistake. They were calculated, deliberate, and showed a complete disregard for your granddaughter's safety and well-being. The courtroom went dead silent. Therefore, this court finds you guilty of felony child endangerment, child abandonment, and reckless endangerment. Given the serious nature of these crimes and their potential consequences, I sentence you to 2 years in state prison followed by 5 years of supervised probation. She looked her dead in the eye and delivered the words that would haunt her forever. You do not deserve to be a grandmother. The courtroom exploded. Diego started yelling about injustice. Relatives were crying, and Mom just sat there looking like someone had slapped her with a reality check. Additionally, I'm ordering a permanent restraining order preventing any contact with the minor victim and restitution in the amount of $75,000 for psychological treatment and damages. As we left the courthouse, Mercedes was waiting outside with a group of church ladies holding signs about religious persecution and protecting Christian families. She tried to block our path, screaming about God's judgment and how I'd stolen money from my brother in his time of need. Anna stepped between us. "Ma'am, you need to back off." Security had to escort Mercedes and her prayer group away from the courthouse. Justice had been served, and I'd collected every penny I was owed. Sometimes accountability actually works. 6 months after the trial, life had completely transformed. Ellie was thriving in therapy and had bounced back with that incredible resilience kids somehow manage. She still had occasional nightmares, but they were getting less frequent. And she'd developed this amazing bond with Anna that was beautiful to watch. Anna and I had been dating for 4 months by then, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. She'd moved in 3 weeks earlier after Ellie asked if she could stay forever. We'd taken things slow out of respect for Ellie's trauma and my own trust issues, but everything about our relationship just worked. "Daddy, can Anna be my new grandma?" Ellie asked one Saturday morning while we were making pancakes. Anna nearly choked on her coffee. "Sweetheart, I'm not old enough to be a grandma, but you take care of me better than Grandma ever did." Kids have a way of cutting right to the heart of things. Mom was serving her sentence and had tried to contact me several times, but the restraining order was clear. Mercedes had also been sending letters full of Bible verses about prodigal sons and forgiveness, which I threw away without reading. Diego, meanwhile, had completely lost it after paying me back. The loss of his car and having to liquidate his possessions to pay his debt had been the final straw in his already fragile mental state. He'd gone on a 3-week bender that ended with him getting arrested for DUI after crashing his borrowed car into a mailbox. He'd been evicted from his apartment and was basically couch surfing between relatives who were getting tired of him. Anna's family had been incredible throughout everything. Her parents were these warm, functional people who communicated like adults and solved problems without emotional warfare. Ellie was getting her first taste of what healthy family relationships looked like, and she was thriving. "You know what I love about your family?" I told Anna one night after a barbecue at her parents' house. "What's that? Nobody's trying to manipulate, guilt trip, or emotionally blackmail anyone else. You guys just actually like each other." Revolutionary concept, right? We'd been talking about marriage tentatively, the way you discuss important things when there's a 5-year-old involved. Ellie had made it clear she approved of the arrangement, and Anna had proven she was in this for the long haul. The night I proposed, Ellie was in on the plan. We'd gone to the same park where Anna had saved her. It had been transformed from a place of trauma into a symbol of new beginnings. Ellie found the ring box during a treasure hunt game and presented it to Anna with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "Will you marry us?" Ellie asked, because apparently we were a package deal. Anna was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, I'll marry both of you." The engagement was going perfectly until 3 weeks later when Diego decided to make his final play. I was coming home from work on a Thursday evening when I saw him standing in my driveway, clearly drunk and angrier than I'd ever seen him. He must have been waiting for a while because Anna's car wasn't there. She'd taken Ellie to her dance class. "There's my piece of shit brother," he slurred as I got out of my car. "Living the perfect life while mom rots in prison and I'm homeless. Diego, you're drunk. Go home." Home. What home? I lost everything because you had to collect your freaking debt like some loan shark. He was swaying on his feet holding a beer bottle and blocking my path to the front door. What followed was a drunken rant about how I destroyed the family, stole his money, and ruined his life. He was getting more agitated, waving the bottle around and making threats about teaching me what it felt like to lose everything. "Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. Maybe something should happen to your perfect little life. Maybe someone should take something away from you for once." That's when I realized he wasn't just drunk. He was unhinged. This wasn't family drama anymore. "Diego, you need to leave now. Or what, you'll call the cops, like you did on Mom." When I pulled out my phone, he snapped. He threw the beer bottle at my car, shattering the rear window, and started screaming like a maniac about how I'd stolen his money and destroyed his life. The police arrived 8 minutes later to find Diego sitting on my front steps crying and mumbling about how unfair everything was. He was so drunk he could barely stand up. They arrested him for public intoxication, disturbing the peace, and destruction of property. 2 days later, Diego appeared in court for his DUI case. The judge sentenced him to 6 months in jail, loss of his license for 2 years, and mandatory alcohol counseling. When he got out, he found the restraining order waiting for him. Meanwhile, Mercedes had escalated her own campaign of harassment. She'd been calling my workplace, trying to get church members to pressure me, and had even shown up at Ellie's school claiming to be family. The final hearing for both restraining orders was almost anticlimactic. Diego showed up looking like he'd been living under a bridge, still blaming everyone else for his problems. He told the judge I'd systematically destroyed our family, had our mother imprisoned, stolen money from him when he was at his lowest point, and was now trying to silence him for speaking the truth. Mercedes came dressed like she was going to a funeral and ready to quote scripture about forgiveness and family loyalty. She claimed I'd turned my back on God's commandments and was persecuting my own family for standing by Christian values, even using worldly courts to steal money from my brother in his time of need. The judge looked at the police reports, witness statements, and video evidence from my security cameras. "Diego, you threatened your brother's family, destroyed his property, and demonstrated clear signs of substance abuse and emotional instability. The debt collection was legal and legitimate. Paying back money you borrowed is not theft. This restraining order is granted for a period of 5 years. Mercedes, your harassment of this family, including attempts to contact the minor child at school and interfering with the father's workplace, constitutes stalking behavior. You are also prohibited from any contact for 5 years. Just like that, the last toxic pieces of my family were legally removed from our lives." A year later, Anna officially adopted Ellie. The hearing was just a formality. She'd been Ellie's mom in every way that mattered since that day in the park. When the judge signed the papers, Ellie started crying happy tears. Now it's official. I have the best mom ever. We had a small wedding 6 months later, just close friends and Anna's family. Ellie was the flower girl and took her job very seriously. Ellie's happy and healthy and surrounded by people who actually deserve to be called family. She knows the story about how Anna saved her, but to Ellie, that's just how they met. Anna isn't the woman who rescued her from a predator. She's just mom. Sometimes I get updates about my biological family through the grapevine. Mom gets out next year, but the restraining orders will still be in effect. Diego's been in and out of jail for various alcohol-related incidents and is basically homeless. Mercedes is apparently telling everyone at her church that I'm possessed by demons and asking for prayers to cast out the evil spirits that made me turn against my family. I used to feel guilty about how everything turned out, like maybe I should have tried harder to help them or found some way to keep the family together. But then I look at Ellie confident, happy, surrounded by people who love her unconditionally, and I know I made the right choices. Real family doesn't threaten you when you set boundaries. Real love doesn't use children as weapons. Ellie's about to become a big sister. Anna's pregnant with our second kid, and Ellie's thrilled to teach the baby everything important. She's already planning lessons about stranger danger, the importance of telling trusted adults when something's wrong, and how to identify the difference between people who love you and people who just want to manipulate you. Smart kid. She's going to be an amazing big sister.